If you really want to impact the club face, it has more to do with the wrist than it does with the grip. Now, that being said, the way I grip the club could definitely affect the way that I use my wrists. So if I go to the top of the backswing and that club face is square, if I want to close it, I'm not going to change my grip. I'm going to change my wrist conditions, or I'm going to create a little bit more flexing of my lead wrist and bowing of my trail wrist, or extension of my trail wrist, which you can see here. And if I wanted to open it, I'd go the other direction. So you can see my wrist angles have a direct impact on what the club face is doing. Hey everyone, in this video we're going to go over how to have a better club face without changing your golf grip. Those of you who have attempted to change your grip in the past know that it can be challenging, and we have some options that are easier than going down that road. So remember, smash that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, thank me, which is a great new feature, allows you to contribute to the ongoing success of my YouTube channel, and comment. These things help in more ways than you know. Alright, so let's talk about some ways that we can change the club face without changing our golf grip. Why would I not want to change my golf grip? Well, for those of you at any point in your golfing career have gone through a grip change, they're difficult to say the very least. And I have a saying at my golf school that change a grip, lose a student. Joking there, but there is some seriousness to that, where it can be extremely hard. So what I've come up with is different options, different ways to give my student to change the club face, get it in a good position to match their pattern. So what I want to do is I want to go over some of those with you, and when you have options, you can pick the one that really works best for you. Hey, let's give this a try. Some self-discovery, some experimenting, which you've heard me talk about in other videos. Let's give this a try. How does it work for me? Oh, I like that. Let me see about that. And then come to some conclusions that might not need us to go down the road of making a grip change. All right, so a couple things I want to go over very quickly is I want to go over the different positions of the club face. I've got this nice big club. Unfortunately, it's right-handed. I don't have a left-handed one. So for my left-handed viewers, which I know I have a lot because I'm left-handed too, you're just going to have to bear with me. So where I'm talking about square, open, and close is going to be at the top of the backswing. So when I get to the top of the backswing, and as a righty, that club face mirrors my left arm, which would be my lead arm, the one closest to the target, but here I am at the top of the backswing. When they're parallel, that's a very square position. So if I bring that back down to impact, you can see it's pointed right at the camera. Now, if I take it to the top of the backswing and I get some cup of that lead wrist, kind of Rod Pampling, Ernie Els sort of style that we see, that club face is pointing more to the ground. And if I bring that back around to impact, well, you can see how open it is. It's pointing over here to the right somewhere. Now the last one is if I get to the top of the backswing, now I'm creating some bowing of that lead wrist, the left wrist for a righty, right wrist for a lefty. You can see the club face is pointing to the sky. And as I bring that back down to impact, you can see how it's now pointing left, or would be closed for a right-handed player. So I think it's very, very important to see those things. Now, one of my arguments, I'll keep this club for a second, is that if you really want to impact the club face, it has more to do with the wrist than it does with the grip. Now, that being said, the way I grip the club could definitely affect the way that I use my wrists. So if I go to the top of the backswing, and that club face is square, if I want to close it, I'm not going to change my grip. I'm going to change my wrist conditions, or I'm going to create a little bit more flexing of my lead wrist and bowing of my trail wrist, or extension of my trail wrist, which you can see here. And if I wanted to open it, I'd go the other direction. So you can see my wrist angles have a direct impact on what the club face is doing. But before we get into that one, I'm going to give you a simpler one. So if you're somebody, you've identified, hey, I have a very strong grip and that's going to be both hands away from the target. I've gone over that in other videos, but both of my hands are turned away from the target, and it's a very strong grip. How would you know that it's strong? Take a video from down the line here, look at it at the top of the backswing. If it's pointed to the sky, kind of like Dustin Johnson, we know that it's a closed or strong club face. What's a simple fix that I could do? I could do it in 5 minutes before I go to the first tee and can have an impact. The other way you know if it's strong is you fight the ball going left. A lot of hooks, but fight as a right-handed player, fight the ball going left. As a left-handed player, fight the ball going wrong. So a lot of hooks. What you can do is I can open the club face at address. Now I'm not saying open at 30 degrees, I'm saying open at 5 to 10 degrees. And so now if I keep my same grip, and make sure you open it first, then get your grip. A lot of people will just say, oh, okay, he wants me to open it, I'll turn it open, but I haven't changed how my hands are relative to the club face, so when I get back to impact, guess what? It's closed again. So set it 2 to 5 to 10 degrees open, depending on how strong your grip is and how much you need it. But now as I get my golf grip, what you can see are my hands are actually neutral to the club face. So I find it much easier for students to absorb changing the club head end versus changing the grip end. So hey, I have a strong grip, and the ball tends to go left on me. I'm just going to open the face a few degrees. Now that might work, it might not, and that's why I have another option that we'll go over in just a little bit. So the opposite would hold true too. If you have a very weak grip, now both of my hands tend to be towards the target, not away from the target. If I look at my V's, my V's are to my chin. With the strong grip, my V's were over here to my right shoulder more. Again, going over this as a right-handed player. Unfortunately, my lefties are going to have to turn it around, but you know what? We've done that our whole life, so I'm attuned to it when I watch a golf video or read an article about golf. But if I'm a little more weak, what I can do is I can now close the club face a couple degrees, 2, 5, 10. I mean, it just depends on how open the club face is, how weak your grip is. How do I know? Again, video down the line, I see that the club face is open at the top, or I fight blocks, fades, anything that we know the face is open. That's definitely how we would know that we need to do this. So I've got my hands a little weaker, but I'm closing the club face. So as I bring it up to the camera, again, you can see that relative to the club face, this thing's really heavy, by the way. Relative to the club face, my hands are now stronger or closer to a neutral position. They're not weak anymore. So that would be the first way that I would go about fixing, hey, I've been down the road of a grip change. I don't want to go there. What are some other alternatives I have to stop hooking the ball, stop fading the ball, whether you're strong or weak, whatever side of the aisle you fall on there. So what I want to do is I'm just going to hit a few with the same intention that we just talked about. So now I am going to do this left-handed. And I'm going to start with a strong grip. So you see I have both hands really turned away from the target, which would be strong. And what I'm going to do to offset that is I'm just going to open the club face a few degrees. My target is my tent down the other end. I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can on the camera. So I've got a strong grip, and I'm just going to open the face slightly. And lo and behold, the ball goes towards my target. So I had a strong grip, but I offset it with an open club face, so I'm not seeing the ball go right. I'm not fighting a hook. So let's go the other way around. I'm now going to take a weaker grip, so I'm going to actually turn my hands, both of them, back to the target. This is pretty weak here. I'm going to take a really, really weak grip. But remember the process that I want to go through here. I want to close the club face first and then take my weak grip, and honestly when I look at my hands relative to the club face, they're neutral. So should, given a decent golf swing, should produce a pretty straight shot. So here we go, towards my tent down there. And that was good too. Maybe just a little right of target, but through some self-discovery, some experimentations, I could find straight. Okay, so that's one way we can go about it. I know I have a strong grip. Hey, I'm going to open the face a few degrees at address, kind of neutralize my grip relative to the club face. And as I said, it's much easier to change for students to change the club face end than it is to change the grip end. Grip, I start changing grips, I see people melt. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I change maybe a handful of grips a year. That is my last line of defense. I want to see if I could do it some other ways before I attack the grip. Hey, I know I have a weak grip. I'm going to just start with the club face hooded or closed a few degrees. So again, my grip is now neutral, and all in all should produce a pretty straight shot. Okay, so the next way that I like going about impacting or changing the club face, and we did this earlier with the big club, is of course the way I grip the club can affect the way I use my wrist, but if you really want to change the club face at the top of the backswing, I'm going to do it by changing my wrist. So what I coach my students to do is I coach them to understand how to use their wrist angles during the backswing and at the top of the golf swing. So if I was a very strong grip player, I'm taking the club back very close, so you see I get to the top of the backswing, that thing is pointing straight at the sky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on neutralizing that club face. And how do I do that? I do that by putting a little bit of extension in that lead wrist, which for a lefty is going to be the right wrist, for a righty is going to be the left wrist. But I can take that club face from being so closed to being more neutral. So let's give this a try. I'm going to go really strong grip, but as I get to the top of the backswing, I'm just going to create a little bit more cupping of that right wrist, and you can see that club face is in a pretty good position, versus if I didn't do that, now that club face is pointing to the sky, and I'm going to fight right. I'm going to fight pulls and hooks. Okay, so strong grip, just putting a little more cup in that right wrist as I take it back. And lo and behold, a straight shot right down towards my tent down there. Now, if I'm somebody who fights a weak grip and that club face getting open, now I'm just going to go the other way. I'm going to create a little more flexing of that lead wrist, a little bowing of that lead wrist. Very popular in golf instruction right now. We see it with John Rahm, Colin Morikawa, Dustin Johnson. Who wouldn't want their game, right? Makes sense that we're trying to chase what they're doing. But if you're somebody who has a weak grip, tends to get the face open at the top, creating some bowing of that wrist is another option. It's another way we can do it. Hey, I tried the club face at address. It was just too wacky for me. I didn't quite get that. Didn't help me. Now I'm going to work on educating my wrists, understanding proper wrist angles to impact the club face. Because you know what? I don't want to go down the road of changing a grip. I did that when I was younger and it was a nightmare. Don't want to do that. Other ways to get there, this is how I'm going to do it. So weak grip, and now I'm just going to work on bowing it a little bit more in the backswing, and let's see what we get. Very good again. Just left of my tent down there, definitely would be on the green. So, as I said, I just wanted to have a dialogue. I wanted to have a conversation of some things you can do if you want to change that club face, but you don't want to change the golf grip. We can open the face or close the face depending on if we're strong or weak, or we can educate our wrists, understand good wrist angles, and not have to change the way that we grip the club. So now you know how to change the club face without changing the golf grip. I've given you two options that will have you hitting higher, straighter, more majestic golf shots. I have 2 more videos playing up here right now that I promise will continue to help you improve your game. And remember, please like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, thank me, and comment.